Hey everybody, how's it going? Here we have the Blackbox Compact Sampling Studio from 1010 Music, and here we have the Digitakt, the 8-voice digital drum computer and sampler from Elektron. Each of these is a powerful, flexible, performative sampler. Each machine can capably sequence other instruments. Each has its own unique strengths and quirks. On a whole, as modern hardware samplers go, I would hesitate to argue that one of these is better than the other. I bought the Blackbox after the Digitakt, not because I was planning to replace the Digitakt for any reason, but instead because for sample-based music, when using the Takt as my main drum machine, even with parameter locks, I wanted additional voices available to easily play a larger number of different samples in a given project. Once I had both the Digitakt and the Blackbox, my own personal workflows started to take shape around both machines. I found myself gravitating to one machine or the other for specific use cases. For example, the Blackbox has become my go-to for sequencing other synths. I can do that with the Digitakt, but it clicks for me better on the Blackbox. On the flip side, while I can and often still do make beats on the Blackbox, there's just something about producing beats on the Digitakt that I can't duplicate with the Blackbox. It's just so common to see these two devices being compared these days on YouTube and Elektron forums and 1010 Music forums and Reddit and so on. I think it's fair to say that neither device can relegate the other to second chair of the sampler section. That said, it's valuable to understand the specific similarities and differences between them. In this video, I'm comparing a narrow sliver of functionality common to both the Blackbox and the Digitakt. We're going to look at 19 ways both the Digitakt and the Blackbox can be configured to loop a sample after it's been triggered. These features can generate sounds that range from something that emulates a delay all the way to the sinister stuff of nightmares. As you'll see, there's a lot to unpack here. So without further ado, this is 19 ways to play back a sound on the Digitakt and the Blackbox.
Oh, look, it's good. Go take a look. Oh, look, it's good. Go take a look. Oh, look, it's good. Go take a look. Oh, look.
Alrighty, so first things first, we're going to run down repeat scenarios using the Blackbox. Right now, I've been looping constantly something on the Digitakt, so I'm going to stop that. And we're going to look at the Blackbox. I have made drawings of a collection of these sequences or the behavior of each repeat, and I'm going to throw those up on the screen little by little as we go through this. So we're going to start with the first one. So again, we're talking about repeating a sound. So what does that mean? Right now, I turned loop off. Again, in Blackbox world, when you play a sound once and it repeats without being played again, the Blackbox vernacular, the term is a loop, which is there's other ways to loop sounds to have the Blackbox play them over and over again. That is not this. So right now I have loop mode off, and we're just going to focus on this one sample. So with loop mode off, we have this boundary that we can use to tell the Blackbox how much of our sample we want to play. I'm going to use this button up here.
Long time no see, pal. Glad you could join us.
What's the job?
Now, it's only playing once. Because I have
We're starting to see
release
some action.
all the way up, it kept going. Now if I do this one more time,
Long time no see.
with release
pal.
way
Glad
down,
you could join us.
it's going to stop at
What's
on
the
that
job?
flag. Boom, it's done. The default we usually see whenever you instantiate a new pad is like 20%.
Long time no see, pal.
And
Glad you
what
could
that's
join
going to do is it's going to make the sound
What's the job?
play a skosh after. See, it just went a little after. One other thing we should point out that's pretty sweet, since we're comparing the Blackbox and the Digitakt, you'll notice that the waveform resolution, the way that you can look at and interact with the waveform in the Digitakt, is arguably superior to the Digitakt. Now that's subjective. I guess objectively, a matter of fact is that the view is more detailed and you can zoom in and out. How about that? That's fair. I'm not going to say what's better. I love it. Dialing in the precise start and end points of a sample on the black box, is head and shoulders above the Digitakt. Again, in this one specific realm of functionality. So, okay, so we played it once.
Long time no see, pal. Glad you could join us.
Glad you could join us.
What's the job?
Okay, so now, so that's the first scenario, is just no loop. Okay, so one down, a whole bunch to go. The second scenario is just a basic forward loop. So go to MISC. I'm going to do forward. And then you'll see we had pink flags before. Now we have these white ones.
Long time no see, pal. Glad you could join us.
Okay, so now that we're looping, I'm going to go back. I'm going to turn release up a little bit so I can get more playtime out of our sample.
Long time no see, pal. Glad you could join us. You could join us. You could join us.
Okay, so I'm calling this scenario 2, basic forward loop. So what we did here, the loop mode is set to forward, reverse is off. The sample start and end positions are before the loop start and end on the timeline, right? So we've got these pink flags at the beginning and then the white flags right after it. And so when we play it,
long time no see, pal. Glad
it plays
you could join us.
from the start
You could join us.
to the end of the
You could
loop
join us.
marker,
You
and
could
then it
join us.
repeats
You
this
could
little
join us.
loop boundary.
You could join us.
That's it.
You could join us. You could join us. You could join us. Glad you could join us. Long time no see, pal. Glad you could join us.
So now we got glad you could join us. Glad you could join us.
Glad you
All
could
right,
join us.
so that's scenario 1.
Glad you could join us. Glad you could join us. Glad you could
Oh, I'm sorry, that's scenario 2. Now we're going to move on to the next one. Scenario 3. This time we're going to do a forward loop where the loop starts before the sample. We get a little different behavior. So this time, again, loop mode is forward, reverse is off, but the loop start and end points come before the sample. And let's see what happens when we play that.
Long time no see, pal. Long time no see, pal.
All right, so it basically ignores the sample boundary and just repeats inside the loop. Okay?
Long time no see, pal. Long time no see, pal. Long time no see, pal.
All right, so that's scenario 3.
Long time no see, pal.
Scenario 4. All right, now we're going to get into what I refer to, and this is just me talking here, nested loops. So what I'm going to do now is show you a nested loop, and that is where the loop start and end is outside of, the loop start and end is inside or nested within the sample boundaries. So let's check that out.
Long time no see, pal. Glad you could join us. No see, pal. Glad you could join us. 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 Long time no see, pal. Glad you could join us.
So what happens there, the sample plays from the sample start to the loop end and then bounces back without playing, or jumps back to the loop start point and then plays again. And again, I've got these, I've got the release time at 75. You know, if I set it to 100, it'll just play forever.
Glad you could join us. Glad you could join us. Glad you could join us. Glad you could join us.
Which is
Glad you could
not
join
really
us.
what I want.
Glad you could join us. Glad you could join us.
So you can fade it out. That's another nice thing about the black box is that you notice how I did that while it was playing and it just responded. You can do similar things on the Digitakt, and we'll get to that in a minute. But that's a pretty consistent type of behavior with the black box. If your hands are fast enough and you get to know the interface, you can make all sorts of changes while it's going. Anywho, let's look. That was scenario 4, and we're going to do scenario 5. So this time we're going to do a nested reverse loop. So loop mode is forward, but this time I'm going to turn reverse on. We'll go back here, and what I'm doing, same as before, the loop start and end is inside the sample start and end. Let's play this. Okay, so this is kind of funky when we're using verbal or vocal samples, but a little more musical when you're doing it with music or when you're chopping things up. But what happened there is that the sample starts at the sample end, it plays back to the sample loop start. So from sample end to loop start, then it plays it plays to the loop end, then it jumps back to the loop start, then it plays from the loop end back to the loop start. Did I say that right? End, start, loop end to loop start, loop end to loop start, loop end to loop start. I think I flubbed the explanation there, but I corrected it. And again, I'm going to throw up these sketches that I made. They kind of explain this. So that was scenario 5. Scenario 6 is, again, a nested loop, but this time we're going to flip over to bidirectional. So the loop mode is set to bidirectional, reverse is on. And what's going to happen here is it's going to play from the end, play from the end to the beginning of the loop start point, play to the loop end point, play back to the loop start point, and so on.
Glad you could join us. Glad you could join us.
All right, pretty cool. Moving right along, so that's bidirectional. That was bidirectional reverse. Now I'll do bidirectional forward, which means turn reverse off, leaving everything else the same. This time it's going to do something very similar, but it's going to start at the beginning.
Long time no see, pal. Glad you could join us. Glad you could join us.
So it started at the sample start point, played to the loop end point, played backwards to the loop beginning point, and so on and so on and so on. By now maybe we're getting tired of this. Just so you know, like, it doesn't have to be at the beginning. And this is, another thing, the immediacy of the black box.
What's the job? Bar's job. What's the job? Bar's job. Bar's job. Bar's job.
Oh, you got some more good stuff. I'm going to just turn everything off.
Goemon's here.
We're starting to see some action now. Go take a look. Action now. We're starting to see some action now. Go take a look.
Okay, so we just changed things up a tiny bit. What's next? Told you there's a lot of these. We're almost at the end of the black box part though. So I'm gonna do a bidirectional loop again. So we're gonna have bidirectional on. I'm gonna turn reverse off, but I'm gonna adjust the position a little bit. Where's my flags? They're all the way over here. So this time, before I was nested, now I'm not. So maybe I'll tighten this up a little bit, because we kind of auditioned it. So this is the sample start and end positions are before the loop end and loop start and loop end positions. Here we go.
We're starting to see some action now. Go take a look. Oh, look, it's good. Go take a look. Oh, look, it's good. We're starting to see some action now. We're starting to see some action now. Go take a look.
Okay,
oh,
so
look, it's good.
this is scenario
Go
8.
take a look. Oh, look, it's good.
Bidirectional,
Go
where
take a look.
the loop points
Oh,
are
look, it's good.
after the sample
Go take
boundaries.
a look. Oh, look, it's good. Go take a look. Oh, look, it's
So it started at the beginning, plays all the way to the end of the loop point, and then plays bidirectionally inside the loop boundaries. Scenario 9 is similar, except I'm just going to turn reverse on.
Go take a look. Oh, look, it's no.
This is kind
Go
of
take a
cool.
look. Oh, look, it's no. Go
I
take
think
a
just
look.
in terms
Oh, look,
of
it's no. Go take a look. Oh, look,
the
it's no.
behavior that we're seeing here. So I didn't move the flags at all, but what's happening is it starts playing at the end of the sample endpoint. So I'll move it a little so you can see. Then plays to the end of the loop point, and then starts ping-ponging.
Go take a look. Oh, look, it's no. 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 To see some action now. I understand now. I understand now. I understand
Okay, so
now.
that's
I
9.
understand now. I 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 understand now.
Almost done. Almost done with the black box. So this time we're still gonna talk about the bidirectional feature, but we're gonna start or change things up by moving the loop flags before the sample boundaries. So before we had the sample in front with the loop flags after. Now I'm putting the loop flags in front. And I think, what are we doing? We're going to do bidirectional with reverse off. Here we go. Okay, so this is weird. This takes me a minute to wrap my head around. It's a bidirectional loop with reverse off. What happens here is the sample plays from the start point, the pink start flag, the sample boundary, backwards until it hits the start of the loop boundary, and then ping-pongs inside the loop bidirectionally. Even though reverse is off, but hey, we have one more to go. And what we're going to do this time is turn reverse on. Gosh, I wonder what's going to happen. Okay, so this time it plays from, instead of playing from the loop boundary from the sample boundary into the loop boundary from the sample start, it does it from the sample end. Let's watch it again. So the sample plays from the end to the start of the loop, and then ping-pongs in the loop. And just for kicks, I'm just going to go back and show you with reverse off again. This time it's going to start. So really what the reverse means is, am I starting playing from the beginning of the loop boundary or from the end of the loop boundary? But it's always hunting for the start of the loop if loop is turned on. So it seems to be going backwards even though reverse is off. But it's just because it's playing towards the loop. Okay? So those are the 11 different loop playback scenarios for the black box. Feel free to review. Send me some questions. Let me know your comments. I'm going to show you an example of a song I did when I first got my black box, where I was fooling around with this and I got a neat effect. I'd be curious to see what all you guys are doing with triggering loops like this. So now let's take a look. Let's take a look at similar behavior on the Digitakt.
Hey!
I like that. Hey!
Hey!
Hey! Let's see if we can tighten up that hey.
Hey!
Alrighty, so we looked at the black box. We looked at sample playback with loops on the black box. We saw, I think, 11 different scenarios for how the black box can play back a sample with a loop, where triggering the sample one time gets you that sample and more. Now I want to examine that similar behavior on the Digitakt. A couple of details to get through first. Let's get it out of the way, the screen. The Digitakt screen is awesome. The black box screen is also awesome. I have a second window showing the screen zoomed in a little bit because I think it's going to help display what I want you to see more easily. They're different machines. The Blackbox doesn't have as many hardware buttons as the Digitakt. You do a lot of work on the screen. So in a sense, some might say it's a better screen. It's the appropriate screen for the Blackbox. The screen on the Digitakt is easy to see in the dark. It has a screen saver, which the Blackbox still doesn't have. So if I talk for too long and you notice the screen going dim, that's because the screen dims after a few minutes, and then it actually just turns itself off, I think after an hour, and then when you hit a key, it just turns back on. So the Digitakt display or the screen is great for the Digitakt. Also, though, we should point out that there is no waveform zoom on the Digitakt. The only time you can zoom in on a waveform on the Digitakt is when you're recording an audio sample. Once the sample's been saved, what you see is what you get. The Digitakt sort of imprints the sample on this 0 to 120 scale. And if it's really long, it's going to be really compressed. And this is, in Digitakt terms, this is a pretty long sample. So keep that in mind. Now, let's talk about just some of the sort of vocabulary differences. On the Blackbox, to manage sample length, we had sample length with looping, we had 4 key parameters: start, length, loop start, and loop end. I said start and length. Length is basically like sample end. So sample start, sample end, loop start, loop end. Then we had loop mode, and we had reverse. And, loop mode, we got none, forward and bidirectional on the Blackbox, and then we had reverse on or off. So on the Digitakt, it's a little different. This screen shows it off pretty well. Pay no attention to these two over here. Starting this first virtual knob, which is mapped to E here, is the start position, which is 0. And then length or end position is at 120 by default. And then here's the loop position, which is right now is off. So that we have those 3 parameters, whereas we had 4 on the Blackbox. Then on the Blackbox, we had 2 other controls. Like I said, we had loop mode and we had reverse. Really, the only other thing we have on the Digitakt is play mode, which is right here. But it's pretty easy to see what's going on. Here it's on forward. There's forward loop, reverse loop. It's pretty easy to tell the difference. Forward loop, reverse loop. And then there's reverse. One other element that I want to mention on the amp page, whenever you import a sound to a track on the Digitakt, the amp decay is set to 64. I don't know why it's 64. Maybe it's half of 128, which is maybe the max. I don't know, is it 127? Yeah, it probably is. Well, it goes from 126 to infinite. Anyway, 64 means that the sample is going to fade out.
Long time no see, pal. Glad you could join us.
It's going to keep playing, but you just can't hear it anymore. That makes a lot of sense on a lot of different drums and cymbals and crashes and other, but for this, I'm going to set this to infinite so that our sample doesn't go away while we're trying to examine the way that the loops behave. Alrighty, so let's look at these Digitakt sample playback with loop scenarios. Same exact sample as before. Starting setup here. Pay no attention to that 86. That's the sound level. The 0 on the bottom and right next to the 86, that's the loop start. Which is, this is this guy, loop start. The next one, the length, we'll pull that guy in a bunch. That's the length of the sample, so it's going to stop there if we're not looping. And then the next one is the loop position. We'll get to that in a second. So when play mode is forward, here's what happens.
Long time no see, pal. Glad you could join us.
Okay, so that's our first playback scenario. No looping, just play the constraints. Play the start through the length and stop. Even if I turned on the loop position and took it from off and put it somewhere,
Long time no see, pal. Glad you could join us.
it's not going to, it doesn't do anything because looping isn't turned on. Now, if I, oops, forget about that guy. See, I told you those knobs, a blessing and a curse. So I'll position that a little more in a more desirable spot, and now I'll turn on, actually before we do that, just, the other scenario, very basic, is playing in reverse. Okay, so forward,
Long time no see, pal. Glad you could join us.
reverse.
All
All right, so now let's just take a look at a forward loop. And I'm going to take that guy out. Forward loop. Play, forward loop. Let's see what happens.
Long time no see, pal. Glad you could join us.
What's the job? What's the job? What's the job? What's the job?
All right,
What's
now
the
you
job?
remember I set
What's the
the
job?
decay to infinite, so it's
What's
going to
the
go
job?
forever. I could
What's the
have it
job?
fade out.
What's the job? What's the job?
And this is, another thing that makes the Digitakt such an awesome performance tool. You learn how to use these things, and you can get some really cool effects. All right, so that was what I'm referring to as scenario 3 on the scenario 3 on the Digitakt. The sample plays from the start all the way out to the loop position, and then it jumps back to the length marker to the end, and then continues to loop. So, now that I've explained that, let's look at that again.
Long time
Starts
no
at the
see,
start.
pal. Glad you could
It's
join
going to go
us.
right past the length marker,
What's the job?
hit the loop
What's the
marker,
job?
and bounce.
What's the job?
In as much as your decay is set up. So what's the next step is very similar, exact same loop markers. This time I'm just going to do reverse loop. Okay, so we've got, in order here, we've got our start marker, our length marker, and our loop marker. And the only thing that I changed is now we're in a reverse loop. So dig that.
Baj dit snoop.
Oh, sorry. I'll show you again.
Baj dit snoop. Baj dit snoop.
All right, besides something freaky, what it's doing is the sample is playing from the loop position, the loop marker, which in this case is now at 17, and it's going to play back to the length marker and then loop continuously in there. So it never even goes to the start position.
Baj dit snoop. Baj dit snoop. Baj dit snoop.
Okay. Promise you there's nothing sinister at play here with these reverse audio samples. So now I'm going to change things up a little bit. So now we're on to scenarios 5 and 6 for loop playback on the Digitakt, sample loop playback. Before we had the loop marker after the length marker. Now I'm going to switch these two. So I'm going to put the loop inside the length. And we'll go back to forward looping here. And now let's listen to that.
Long time no see, pal. Glad you could join us.
What's the job? What's the job?
This is
What's the
essentially the exact same behavior
What's the
as the
job?
first one we looked at,
What's
right? So if I just switch these two,
Long time no see, pal. Glad you could join us.
what's the job? What's the job? What's the job?
I wish I could tell you off the top of my head, even though I've been thinking about this all day, like under what circumstances they really are very different. I'm sure there is something that you could do that would make them be very, very different, but it's essentially the same thing. So let's move on to the next one. Scenario 6 is a reverse loop, again, where the loop marker is in between the start and the end. Right? Okay, how's that sound?
Baj dit snoop. Baj dit snoop.
Okay, so this time
Baj dit snoop.
the sample starts at the end position and plays to the loop marker, and then jumps back to the end and loops.
Nope.
Oh, look at. Oh, look at.
I know
look, it's not-
there's something musical in here. You'll notice you can fudge with them when it's on infinite. You can do some cool stuff, but basically in reverse loop mode, the start position becomes irrelevant if the loop marker. Oops, wait a minute. I'm going nuts here. Okay, one more time. Okay, so it has nothing to do with the start position anymore. And again, I'm pretty sure. So again, it's very similar whether unlike the black box where the behavior just gets really, it's a lot to wrap your head around in the black box. It's pretty simple. If the, what do we have? We have start, end, loop. If I switch it, it's basically the same. Okay, so I think that was 6. And then what else did we have here? Scenario 7 and 8. This time we put loop all the way at the beginning. Or we put loop somewhere before the start point and the end point. And then we'll loop forward. So this time, again, if you put it all the way at the beginning, it's off, and that's not what we want. So we want loop before sample start. I don't even know where I am anymore with the sample. Let's try something new. We're not looping.
Hey!
I like that. Hey!
Hey!
Hey! Let's see if we can tighten up that hey.
Hey! Hey! Hey!
All right, so we're making music now. All right, so on this one, again, our loop position is before sample start. And so what's happening is it's playing...
Hey!
So it's playing from the start to the end. There, this is the end. Then it bounces without playing to the loop marker.
Hey!
And
Hey!
okay, so it goes from the sample start to the end, jumps back to the loop marker, and then plays to the end, and then jumps back to the loop marker again. So you get basically the second time around, you start the whole sample a little earlier, but then you play the whole sample. So that's very different than what we looked at before. Now, similarly, how does this behave in reverse?
Yeah!
So essentially now we are extending the overall length. Okay, I don't know if you can hear me. We're extending the overall length of the sample, by the loop position, but playing in reverse.
Yeah! Seal what's underneath it.
And then when it gets to the end, it's going to go back to that final marker. Okay, that's it. That is it. This has been a deep dive examination of how looped sample playback is implemented differently on 2 fantastic samplers. This turned out to be a much more involved exercise than I had first expected. Also, I was surprised to find that apples to apples, the black box leaves me wanting nothing in this category when compared to the Digitakt. With bidirectional playback and its loop start and end settings, the black box technically has the capability to perform twice as many types of unique one-shot loops as the Digitakt. The black box sound is crisp, and the control of the sample start and end points is just so precise. To be honest though, the number of unique looping scenarios isn't something I'd use to measure the relative greatness of a sampler. What's more important to me is the utility. How am I going to use the available features? As I mentioned earlier on the Digitakt, I like to sometimes put a loop on a trig with a parameter lock to fake a delay effect, and the Digitakt has onboard delay. But sometimes it's just what a crash needs to give a beat some more character. It can be huge. And because of the control layout on the Digitakt, I can confidently dial in that kind of setting on the fly very quickly. Blackbox doesn't offer parameter locks, so if I wanted to match this kind of behavior, I'd need to dedicate an entire pad to one sound. This review was super narrow. You have to take into account the bigger picture of what each device has to offer. Digitakt has LFOs. Blackbox does not. It might be fair to say that the Digitakt sound is warmer than the Blackbox. Resampling on the Digitakt adds color. On the Blackbox, not so much. But for Blackboxers who want dirt, there's always granular mode. A comprehensive comparison would take days, so you tell me, if you have one but not the other, what other killer feature besides parameter locks can't you live without? Share your thoughts in the comments. Let me know what else you'd like to see. Don't forget to like and subscribe. See you next time.